The dark truth about Hermes is more dangerous than it seems, because his power never lay in speed alone, but in the calm with which he lets the impossible pass through the world without asking permission. Among the gods of Olympus, few seemed as light as Hermes, yet almost none concealed a side so difficult to measure. Before becoming messenger, guide, and lord of the roads, Hermes was born surrounded by silence, stone, and secrecy. Far from the central brilliance of Olympus, in Maya's hidden shelter, the swiftest god of myth came into the world. Even as a newborn, Hermes did not seem made for rest, because his eyes already ran faster than the cradle itself. He had barely taken his first breath, and already there was something restless in him, as if being born were too little for one who wished to cross boundaries. Maya tried to keep the boy safe within the mountain's refuge, but some natures refused to remain small for very long. On the very day he was born, Hermes was already moving with too much cunning for a child and too much calm for an innocent. Then he slipped out of the cave in secret, not like one fleeing, but like one who already understood that the world was made to be tested. Outside, every stone seemed to invite him forward, as if the roads themselves already recognized in him their future lord. But Hermes did not go out in search of glory, only of opportunity, because his first impulse was already more cunning than heroic. In the distance, belonging to Apollo's disciplined radiance, a divine herd grazed beneath the sun as though it were untouchable. In that instant, Hermes did what he would do many more times through eternity. He saw a rule and felt the urge to bend it. Too small to frighten and too swift to be anticipated, he descended the slope like a dangerous idea taking shape. With no brute strength, no visible threat, and not the slightest hurry, Hermes touched the impossible for the first time through pure ingenuity. He stole Apollo's herd on the very first day of his life, and he did it with the serenity of one already born intimate with deception. But taking it was not enough. He had to erase the trail, and that was where Hermes's mind proved sharper than his appearance allowed anyone to imagine. To confuse whoever might come after him, he reversed the tracks, changed the route, and made the truth seem to walk in the wrong direction. Hermes was still a baby in the eyes of the world, yet he already knew how to wield one of power's most dangerous weapons: confusion. By dusk, he had already crossed more ground than many men would travel in days, as if the world were opening before his will. When he returned to the cave, Hermes brought back not only the fruit of the theft, but the silent proof that his nature would never fit within ordinary forms. Maya saw her son return wrapped in silence and sensed that there was something in him far older than childhood. There was no blood, no open ruin, and yet Hermes's darkness was already beginning to show in the elegant pleasure he took in defying order. In Hermes, danger was not born of blind violence, but of the intelligence capable of smiling while moving the world out of place. That is why, even before he was given a role on Olympus, Hermes was already dangerous, because he understood far too early how to cross boundaries without asking permission. The dark truth about Hermes began there, in the moment when a newborn god proved that cunning, too, can be a terrifying form of power. By dawn, word of the missing sacred herd was already racing across the fields like an impossible insult. To Apollo, it was not merely a loss, but a direct affront to the light, the order, and the authority of his very name. He followed the signs left on the ground, but every mark seemed to mock logic, as if the trail itself had learned how to lie. The farther he went, the more Apollo realized that he was not facing an ordinary thief, but a mind too young to exist and too skilled to ignore. Along the reversed trail of cunning, Apollo's light was led to the cave where Maia still tried to protect the impossible. Inside, Hermes no longer seemed merely a precocious child, but a living secret waiting for the right moment to smile. When Apollo accused him of the theft, Hermes answered with the weapon he would master better than any blade, words shaped with calm. It was hard to sustain the accusation against a newborn child, and Hermes knew that with the unsettling composure of one who already understood the theater of power. Maia tried to defend the mountain refuge, but even she could see that her son would not remain in the role of innocent for very long. Unable to untangle the matter through ordinary logic, Apollo took the dispute to the one place where even the gods had to answer, before Zeus. Hermes went to judgment without fear, because some spirits walk into the center of authority, as though entering yet another road to explore. Before the king of the gods, Apollo presented his fury. Before that same throne, Hermes presented a calm too deep to be trusted. Zeus saw in his newborn son not only the brilliance of intelligence, but also the danger of a cunning that had fallen in love with itself too soon. Even so, Hermes did not lower his gaze, because some natures would rather negotiate with power than shrink before it. When the truth began to emerge, it did not come as shame, but as the display of a talent far too rare to be punished so simply. Hermes had stolen, hidden, confused, and sustained it all with such refined calm that the crime itself almost looked like a form of art in its infancy. But it was there, at the heart of judgment, that Hermes did something even more surprising. He turned tension into agreement. With craft in his hands and music rising from the improbable, he offered Apollo not an apology, but something new enough to deserve forgiveness. Apollo saw in the gift not only beauty, but the unsettling proof that Hermes was capable of creating as easily as he was of disrupting. And so the theft ended not in ruin, but in exchange, and Hermes' cunning began to earn its place among the powers of Olympus. Even then, Hermes' dark side did not disappear, because his brilliance still rose from the pleasure of crossing what seemed forbidden. Hermes was not dark like a tyrant, nor brutal like a beast, but dangerous like every intelligence that learns too early how to move in and out of borders. Perhaps that is why Zeus did not crush him, because he understood that some gifts are not born to obey completely, but to connect worlds that would never touch on their own. The boy who began the day stealing cattle ended it already recognized as something greater, a force capable of moving the unseen. The dark truth about Hermes remained alive because his power did not lie only in speed, but in the elegance with which he made the impossible seem natural. After that judgment, Hermes stopped being seen as an impossible child and began to be treated as a force slipping through the very cracks of Olympus. The higher he rose among the gods, the more Hermes understood that every road always hides more than one direction. Not every path led to temples, mountains, and light, because some opened where even the gods preferred to speak more softly. That was how Hermes discovered that his domain was not merely movement, but passage itself between the clear and the obscure. Where others stepped back before the limit, Hermes advanced with the unsettling calm of one born to cross it. Along the roads of Greece, travelers began asking his favor before setting out, because they knew that the road has eyes and invisible dangers. Merchants asked him for luck, messengers for speed, and even thieves whispered his name before acting in the shadows. And that double devotion said more about Hermes than any hymn ever could, because he was invoked by both necessity and cunning. Hermes rejected neither side because he understood early that the world moves through noble intentions just as much as through crooked desires. His caduceus ceased to be merely a symbol and became a subtle staff capable of ordering chaos without destroying conflict. But Hermes' darkest role was still to come, far from common roads, music, and the open brightness of day. When life faded away in silence, someone had to guide what remained along paths the living could not follow. That was how Hermes also entered the realm of farewell, not as judge, but as guide to what could no longer return. In that quiet darkness, his lightness did not disappear, but learned to walk with greater care than it had ever needed in the light. It was there that his most dangerous truth appeared in full, because Hermes could touch fear without belonging to it. While the world slept without knowing, Hermes crossed passages that few gods would endure seeing up close. And every time he returned from those crossings, Hermes came back to Olympus with more brightness in his feet and more shadow in his eyes. Maia may have been the first to realize that her son no longer belonged only to the mountain, nor only to the light. Apollo saw the change as well and understood that Hermes's cunning was no longer mere mischief, but a necessary function between orders that never meet. Between prayer and theft, between message and silence, between life and farewell, Hermes took the place at the center where no one else could remain. That is why his darkness was never simple wickedness, but a freedom too vast to be entirely safe. Whoever sees only the smiling messenger forgets that Hermes also knows the roads of no return and does not tremble before them. Perhaps his darkest truth lies exactly there, in the elegance with which he crosses what for others will always be an abyss. Hermes does not destroy the world like a tyrant, but shifts it with such delicacy that change itself seems almost too natural. The dark truth about Hermes is more dangerous than it seems, because his power never lay in speed alone, but in the calm with which he lets the impossible pass through the world without asking permission. If you love mythology, mystery, and epic storytelling, this channel was made for you. Subscribe now.